Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well as we're wrapping things up here. I just want to share a few thoughts that I had in conclusion as we're pulling things together at the end of the course. We've accomplished a lot, and I want to recognize some of the things that we've done together. So the first thing I just want to say is thank you so much for all of your hard work this term. We all know that it's been a strange year when it comes to COVID and the impact that's had on all of us. And it's a struggle to focus on school given all the stuff that's going on. So, particularly with it being online, which is kind of a shift for all of you, I'm sure, and for me as well, shifting a little bit to do that and adjusting with all the things going on is hard, right? But I think that what I want to say is that I really feel like you've all done a really fantastic job. So thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm so impressed by how you've engaged with the content that we've been working on, and all your thoughtful contributions in terms of thinking through these ideas and pulling them apart and critiquing them. It's been really fantastic to hear your thoughts on this and to engage in some of those conversations. So this is clearly a tough course, and that's valuable, actually. So learning these things that are kind of a bit of a struggle are useful because they give us skills that we can use as we move forward. And I think that the way that you've engaged with this and the work that you put in is really impressive, and you have a lot to be proud of. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. So when we think about the course and we think about what we've accomplished together, we've addressed actually a fair number of different topics. We've thought about the basics of research and evidence-based practice and what they mean and why we use those terms and those approaches. We've thought about questions. How do you create good questions that can help us to, in a clear and specific way, get information from the world or answer a clinical question that we have that we need to figure out based upon the literature that's out there, right? We've also done a fair number of things to think about how you would go forth and actually review the literature. So we've learned about the different types of publications out there. We've learned about the publication process. We've learned about how you can read through a paper efficiently to try and gain some skills there. And you've also spent a fair bit of time assembling your own material to think about these things, as well as doing some work critiquing papers to develop those skills as well. And then we've also delved into a little bit of the ideas that surround evidence-based practice. So first off, how do you think about it? How do you champion this in a social context? Create a culture that supports us improving the quality of care in our practices. We've also looked at some of the strategies for building programs or changing practice and also evaluating those changes as well. So we've done a lot of things in that background to think about those questions and the building up of those questions and how we can actually use that in practical ways going forward. We then sort of transitioned into talking about some of the details of research itself. So we talked about data collection and sampling, which are really fascinating questions with, it sounds kind of boring, but there's actually all these complex details to, who's in the study really determines how the types of results that you get. And the ways that we collect data can have a huge impact on the results that we get and what it tells us about healthcare. So having a critical view towards that and understanding the different processes and considerations in that is going to be a really valuable thing for you. As I've told you in the class, I think that's one of the major areas where when a study goes wrong, that's very often where you find it. So then we moved on to talk a little bit about qualitative research. It's kind of a fascinating way of getting that in-depth data about people's experience with healthcare. And it can be incredibly illustrative for when we're thinking about the ways that we interact with our patients and how people experience the healthcare system and how we can improve it. There's lots of different ways that we can use it to really hone in on strategies that might be effective for improving practice. We also did some practice around that. We tried out doing some interviews, for example. So I hope that was fun for you as well in our class research project. We also moved on to talk a bit more about quantitative research and the ways that can be used in healthcare practice. So this is a strategy that many of us are probably more familiar with, but it gives us the opportunity to apply numbers to some of the questions that we have. A lot of the questions that we have related to how well a drug works, or whether one clinical strategy works better than another in terms of communication or education, or all the different things that we do. Sometimes having numbers that can tell us that one way is better than another, and that we actually statistically believe that that's a difference, is actually something that's really valuable to us as clinicians. We also talked about this a little bit more at a population level, because a lot of things that we're talking about are population health risks when it comes to epidemiology, particularly nowadays. So tried to build out some of our skills in those areas, as well as think a little bit about sort of the basics of how we take that information and analyze it, to understand different elements of the papers that we're going to be reading and what those findings are telling us. And then we pulled back and talked a little bit about some of the broader implications of research. We talked about the ethical challenges of this and the many ways in which research can, under certain circumstances, lead us astray and potentially cause harm. And that's to build out our understanding of, despite the fact that research provides tremendous benefits, that we have to be careful about it. We have to be thoughtful about it. And that there's different ways that we can consider this carefully to ensure that we have the best benefits from what we're trying to do together. So on the practical side, we've also been working on the projects. So I think it's kind of interesting, because for the first time teaching this course, we're really transitioning towards doing something where you're actually working with a community partner and doing a practical project with that partner, where we're developing a clinical question with them that we're then addressing by reviewing the literature. And this is really to help give us practice with a real question to pursue the process of evidence-based practice, from creating the question to gathering the information to synthesizing it to making recommendations about how we should change practice to improve care for patients or improve clinical systems. So I think that that's really valuable. We've gotten partway through the process in this course, and then you'll continue that on in 460 going forward. And I'm really looking forward to see how your work evolves as we go forward with that. So those were the main things that we did in this course. As you can tell, we covered a whole lot. That's a lot of skills, a lot of ideas that we addressed in this course to try and build out our understanding of research and how it can be used to improve practice. So when we think about this course, what were our objectives? We had three main objectives. The first was to understand the research process, which we did by building out our understanding of those different strategies that we use and the context for them. The second was to be able to find research that's relevant to nursing. So we did practice that in our projects and in earlier parts of the course in terms of thinking about accessing databases and finding papers. And then we also wanted to develop skills at reading and assessing research. So we did that both by building out our understanding of research itself so that we could critique it and have a critical view of it, as well as some of the things that we did to practice reading those papers and analyzing them and determine what they mean. So while I recognize that this class is a beginning to this, and we're starting out in our journey of thinking about this, and many of you came to this with a lot of existing knowledge that hopefully we've refined in this course, but what I'll say is that what's clear to me as an instructor is that you've accomplished a lot in terms of achieving those goals. We really, I think, have succeeded at achieving those three things that we're trying to do, and prepared you well to move forward in your program around that. So good work, everyone. I think that that's really a tremendous accomplishment. So part of the reason that I really like teaching this class is, one, I find these topics really interesting. I think that the complexities of them and the ways that we think about possibilities for improvement are really rewarding. We all want to help patients have a better experience, to have high quality evidence-based care, right? And this is the way that we do it, by going to the literature, by gathering new information to improve our practices, right? We also work for healthcare organizations that have a real strong need for people who can help them with updating practice, right? Who can help them to improve their procedures, right? This is something that we all know needs to happen. And then there's also sort of a personal element to this course where, the hope is that you feel more confident in terms of being able to access information. And when you do that, to have an understanding of the evidence that you're working with so that you feel that you can engage with it critically, right? And you have insight into the evidence that's sort of the foundation of what you're doing as clinicians. And using that information that you can actually empower yourself to change the systems that you're working within. So, those are just some thoughts. I think that by gaining those skills, by having this awareness of the research system, that you'll be able to apply it as you go forward. I wish you the best with your future endeavors. I hope that, when you come across something that's interesting to practice, maybe you'll go out and check out some of the evidence, and maybe by working with some folks, you'll be able to change practice. And I also encourage you to get involved with practice councils, for example, to help your organization to shift what they're doing. And please know that as you go forward, both me and other faculty are happy to help you along that journey. If there's a point going forward where I could be helpful to you, feel free to drop me a note, even after you've finished up the course. I'm here and available to you, and I want you to succeed with this. So again, thank you so much for all of your effort this term. It's been a strange term, but you've done a really fantastic job, and it's just been a really real pleasure and an honor to work with you. So take care, everyone, and be well.